We've seen in the last 2 weeks 5 police officers now murdered by people who seem to have, we don't know for certain yet, but who seem to have an anti-police agenda. This comes obviously in the midst of these incidents in which African Americans have died in the hands of the police. Some people blame the rhetoric coming out of some parts of Washington, in particular, or indeed some parts of the establishment, generally talking about, particularly Black Lives Matter, that there's been an ugly ramping up of the rhetoric against the police. Do you, and including even some would say by the Democratic candidate and possibly even by the president himself, that they've helped to create this environment of anti-police sentiment? Do you apportion blame here for this?
I don't want to take that bait because I think it would be the wrong thing to do. The last thing leaders should be doing is starting to blame other people for this. What typically is said, Black Lives Matter, no, all lives matter, and then we just ratchet it up and then just go after each other. So let's just stop doing that. So who cares who said what in the past? Our country is disunified. Our country is tearing itself apart on our streets. That's wrong, that's bad. So why don't we dial down the rhetoric, calm ourselves down, and start listening to one another. When people in this country do not feel safe because of the color of their skin, that is a problem that we need to listen and understand. And when people, kiss their family goodbye, put the badge on and walk out the door and are targeted because of the fact that they have a badge, that's a problem too. So the way I look at this is the last thing we should be doing is feeding the narrative, no offense, but that's in the premise of that question, which is throwing bombs back and forth at each other. Why don't we talk about solutions? What I did after Dallas was I met with young members of the Black Caucus, Hakeem Jeffries, Cedric Richmond, G.K. Butterfield, who's the chair of it, and sat down and thought, we just basically said, what can we do to try and de-escalate this? Out of that conversation, we created a working group. Some of our members, some of the Democratic members, some of our members like Dave Reichert, decorated sheriff, former law enforcement, some of our former U.S. attorneys. And we have a working group, and what we're doing is, instead of throwing bombs at each other, we're looking at solutions. We had Buster Sores, a great guy. He's a good buddy of mine. He's a black pastor in Somerset, New Jersey, First Baptist Church. He and the white police chief in Somerset, a pretty poor area, had already put together a phenomenal relationship between the community and law enforcement so that whenever something occurred and materialized, they were already dealing with it and nothing went out of, they dealt with it right at the outset. There are solutions out there. There are people you can go and listen to in communities that you don't hear about because these problems aren't occurring in those communities. Why don't we bring them up to Washington? Why don't we bring them to our state capitals and listen to their solutions and benefit from that and then try and replicate those models of success? That, to me, is the kind of discussion and rhetoric we ought to have going forward, and that is exactly what we're trying to do.